Hello, Alena Wilson here with Estimate Mastery. Super excited to do another estimate breakdown for you. I have a real world adjuster's estimate that we're going to go over, and I'm going to show you how they wrote it up and point out a few things and go over, where they're deficient and where we need some help on this estimate, and then show you how to write the supplement. So let's go take a look at that. So good to see that there are people here after the long weekend that we just had. Super exciting to have some of you join me. Thank you so much I feel honored that you'd spend a Tuesday afternoon with me after a long holiday weekend. So a couple things I'm going to show you. I got some pictures for us as well. Let me get those back up on deck. And then I'm going to show you the original adjuster's estimate and what that looks like and point out a few things. We'll pull up Xactimate and show you a couple of things. But let me get these pictures. I had them up and then I got distracted and closed the window. So give me 1 second here. And here we go. That's great. So first we're going to look at the adjuster's estimate. And any questions that come up along the way, feel free to drop them in the comment section. I'll be able to take a look at them for you. So let's go ahead and get you seeing my screen here. I'll just jump right into it. Over here, you're going to see, there's the estimate itself. Let me blow it up for you a little bit here. So it was a St. Louis storm, and the adjuster wrote up for the roof and then some of the exterior. So we'll just take a look. And at first glance, it actually looks pretty good. Once you take a look at the photos, though, you're going to see what I see. You're going to be like, oh, wow, actually, that's not so great. But let's cover what the adjuster did first. You have your remove and replace shingles. Great. We've got felt and we've got ice and water shield. That's good. But I can tell for the size of the roof, this doesn't look like enough. And we've got steep charges. So that tells me that we might need 2 courses of ice and water shield on this roof. And so that doesn't, we'll take a look though. We'll look at the Eagle view. Then we've got the remove and replace for the high, the steep, and the extra steep. Problem here is I have no waste on the replacement. So there should be waste on steep and high charge. I'll show you that here in Xactimate in just a second. Drip edge looks great. Flashing, great for the pipe jack. I don't see any venting here. So that's a question that's going to come up in my mind. How is this roof vented? We need to take a look at that. Chimney flashing, great. Furnace cap and storm collar, great. Counter flashing, they got some counter and step on here. That looks great at first glance. Value metal seems appropriate for the size of the roof, since I've already seen the photos, which I'll show you here in a second. So questions, first questions I have is this enough ice and water shield? And why is there no waste on steep and high? And then I also want to know why they're not removing and replacing the drip edge. Pipe jacks right now and venting, you have a hard time getting remove and replace. It's replace only at the moment. So I'll show you that in Xactimate in just a second, why that is. But I don't agree with the just replace only of drip edge and chimney flashing, as well as counter flashing. They should be a removal and replacement of these flashings. And I'll show you on the line item why I know that we need to be asking for remove and replace and not just replace. So I'll cover that with you. And then when you look at the exterior of what they paid, I'll show you these photos here in just a second, and you'll see that there's a lot more damage than just the gutters and a little bit of fascia metal. It's also a 3 to 4 story home, so we'll take a look at that in just a second. So there's extra concessions that we'll want them to make there. I can also tell that they may not know what they're doing, or they were in a very big rush, because I can tell they haven't resequenced their line items. They jumped some line items around, so they didn't take the time to resequence. So it just tells me the caliber of the adjuster. Maybe they were in a big hurry, which also tells me that they're just trying to get this out the door and they probably missed items. So that's the kind of nuanced stuff that I like to pick up on. And yeah, it's interesting. I did rebuild this myself into my Xactimate so I could show you all the particulars. They did not pay overhead and profit on the original estimate either, I don't believe. Let me double check that for you. I'll make sure to see if they paid the overhead and profit or not. But that's pretty much the gist of it. They those are the high points. So let's take a look at the photos. Let me see if they paid O&P really quick though. Now I'm all I'm very, very curious. Let me look at the original statement of loss. They didn't want me to go ahead and reveal all of the claim info and everything, so I had to scrub. Let me look at the paperwork really quick. Yeah, doesn't look like they had paid for the O&P. So that's something else that's missing. And then I want to show you the original the contractor's estimate on this one, which was interesting. As you can see, this is what they wrote up for this job. They did what's called a customer total report, but then they removed all pricing from it. They actually did the work for the I think the original check. So I'm not really sure why they wrote this one up, but you can see they also didn't call out the waste on the steep and the high. They hadn't gone through our program yet. They weren't members at this time. They didn't, they did ask for some R&R, which is great. And then you'll see they did supplement a lot for the exterior, but nothing like what I would have wrote up, which is, of course, why we're here today, is so that I can show you the way that I would have written this up. Now, I do this kind of in a 3-step process with you guys here on Facebook Live. Today is all about digesting the information from the field, looking at everything at the scope of loss, what the adjuster paid for. Again, I recreated this in my Xactimate. That's why you see O&P here. They actually did not pay for O&P. Let me get this back over to you guys here. So let's look at our Xactimate. So just to look, and I think it was an older price list as well. Yeah, from last August. So that's what we're going to look at here as well. We need to update the pricing. So there's quite a few little things that I've picked out just from looking at the estimate. I can tell you what I would be asking for, and we'll go into this particulars once we get into Xactimate and the photos. So that's just like a cursory overview. Let's go ahead and look at this original statement of loss now that I have the totals correct without the O&P, and we'll see where they began. So let me get you that number really quick. I like to have a starting number for you. So let me reprint this report really quick and close this out. We're going to go ahead and take a look at those photos. So there we go. Let's save that. And okay. So the original statement of loss paid for, pull back up the downloads folder. And so they had, yeah. So the original price list was August 2024. Let me blow this up for you a little bit so we can get this looked at. There we go. And then see, the summary that they paid for is summary. There we go. 27,462. So let's take a look at what the contractor. Now I can't because the contractor didn't give me a total. I think they just did the work for the first check amount and did a minimal supplement of a few things here. So if I were to supplement this, I'll again, we're digesting information right now, so I'm not going to go through that estimate. We'll actually go through the estimate itself on tomorrow. No, I don't see you tomorrow. Next week. Next week, I will actually write the estimate for you, show you how I would do it. Today is just about digesting information. So let's get over to those photos. I like to keep these Facebook Lives 20, 30 minutes for you, so you don't have to, we can keep it bite-sized. So let me pull up those photos again for you. So this is interesting because this home had quite a bit of damage, and even the contractor was able to, I can't imagine them doing it for only $27,000. So this is what I commonly run into for people who are out in the field. They're just blowing and going. The big storm hits. This was St. Louis, and they're just going for it. The whole file that they had, most of the photos you'll see are close-ups of the shingles, which is fine if you're trying to get the roof bought. But the roof is already bought on this one. So what I need is close-ups of, the other areas with damage, but I'll show you just from these photos right here. So if you're just joining us, the original statement of loss looks good at first blush, but there's quite a few things wrong. We have no waste on steep. I'm not convinced that this is enough ice and water shield. And I've got some other questions. So let's run through the photos really quick. You've got a couple of arts and crafts projects. I know it's kind of a darker photo, but right here we've got a bay window. that is extra labor hours. They have to, it's not connected to the field shingle. So they have to get off the roof, set up ladders with Jackson planks or however you guys run, just a ladder, whatever you're going to do there, and perform this little arts and crafts projects, which I would give extra RFG, LABL labor hours to, perhaps LAB hours actually, because it's actually the people doing the install that we would do there, use to install that. We did get the counter flashing and the step flashing paid, so that's fantastic. Let's take a look at some of the other photos. Again, close up of hail hits. We already had the roof bought, so there's a clearer picture of that bay window for you. We got some soffit damage here. The original statement of loss did pay for some of the exterior, but they've got fascia metal. They do not have soffit metal on their original statement of loss. So already I can see we've got some issues with the exterior scope of what they paid. There's the hail hits again. And just another picture of the front of the house. Not really much going for us here. Aha, here we go. Here's a new picture. There's some more soffit missing there. And we've got almost a 4-story home. 1, 2, 3, 4, plus the roof. Then we've got another arts and crafts project here. I would want to know the state of the decks. This company does decking. So, if the hail is big enough to do damage to that roof, what's the state of the decks and the other collateral damage that could happen? We did get the gutters bought and some fascia, but we definitely have a situation here. If we're going to get to almost 4 stories, that's not only extra labor, that's going to be equipment that we're going to need to pull in to get the install here as well for the crew. And then, of course, the extra labor here for arts and crafts. Here's a window screen with damage. Don't know where it is. This is very common when I write estimates as a third party, and used to do that for years. This is the typical kind of photo file that I would get. I think this is probably a $45,000, maybe $55,000 job. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 photos of the same exact part of the home over and over. This is very typical. So if anything you can do, if you take one takeaway from today, if that's the only thing you learn, take more photos and get a lot of context to your photos, such as this window screen. I don't know what elevation this is at or which window. We could have other collateral damage if the hail was this big to do this type of damage to a screen. I highly doubt there's just one screen with damage. So that's what this would tell me is, if we could get, there's probably about 50 photos that I would need in order to fully write this one up. But from what I have here and looking at the original statement of loss, we are really vastly underpaid on this exterior, especially since there's no soffit. Soffit's clearly missing. And then we've got that high area and lots of other specialty things. I want to know if the deck was damaged, all kinds of things I have questions on here. So the pictures actually beg me to ask more questions than answering most of the questions that I have. And again, this is typical. Most sales guys, they're good at one thing, that's selling. So, project manager, someone else can get out there to get these photos. It's literally one photo could be worth $1,000 of some of this stuff that adds up. They did pay for the chimney flashing. They did pay for, venting was the other thing I was wondering. It doesn't look like this roof had any venting unless the ridge vent is like really, that's interesting. Yeah, I don't see any venting here. And so that's another thing. We do have to go for code upgrade and figure out the venting situation as well. So quite a bit to write the supplement on here for sure. Ice and water shield, they paid 867 square feet on this one. Looking at the porch, looking at the roof line for the garage, I'd have to pull the Eagle View and do some math here. It's probably sufficient for 1 course, but not 2 courses. Depending on what the pitch of these roofs where the dwelling is, where the ice and water shield should go. I have a question on that as well. Let me go ahead and pull up Xactimate for you and show you what I would do with this one. Get into my estimate items. What we're looking for here, let's see. No, the house the original statement of loss did not pay for overhead and profit. So to answer your question, It did not pay for O&P. I would chase after O&P on this one. I've got quite a few trades now that we've digested it. You can see we've got quite a few trades to go after here. So what I would do is, starting with the roof, we definitely want to have the waste on the steep and high. So it's 15% waste is what they paid on the field shingle. I'm going to add that to the waste on steep and high. The reason I do that, just to illustrate this, just for fun, let's call it test folder here. Whenever you add the waste on, or excuse me, whenever you add a steep or a high charge, let's just say 20 squares, you'll see here that Xactimate. Let me take a step back. Let me show you this first. So for a laminate style roof, let's say without felt, if I add 20 squares of material, this is going to be remove and replace. I, as a user, I'm just going to enter a line item, right? Whenever I enter that line item, Xactimate created 2 line items. One's removal. You can see that here. Sorry if my screen's small if you're on a mobile device. But that's the removal. This is the replacement. Why does it separate it out into 2 line items? Well, by design, I have an email to this effect from pricing@verus.com that states that it is intended that the replacement have waste added to the steep and high charge. So we're going to add 15% waste. We can go ahead here and add that percentage here. I actually like to do it by hand, but you can use that tool. So whenever we add the steep or high charge, does the same thing. Removal is a separate line item than replacement. I, as the user, did not do that. The program did it because Xactimate knows they're going to have additional labor, because this really is a labor to work at a steep pitch or a high roof. It's extra labor, and they know that once they rip off the shingles, well, that's just the field shingle. But to go back, you have to cut in the valleys, the hips, the eaves, or the rakes. You have to install, take the extra time, which is labor, to install, not just ripping off field shingle. You've got to take the extra time to install those separate areas, which is why we ask for waste on those material, that labor only charge. So when you look at the high, it's the same thing. Put in 20, it comes in with 2 line items. So that's my argument for that, right? So going back to the estimate here, I see your other question. Are there permit fees, temporary toilet? Do I add for some things like this? If the costs will be incurred, it should be on your estimate. So like I showed you in the pictures with these little arts and crafts area, that is not an average field shingle that's walkable. They're gonna have to get off the roof, hand tear all of that off, set up equipment, hand tear everything off. Then they have to carry the shingles over and install them, like an arts and crafts project is what I call that. The bay window roof isn't like a line item in Xactimate, so I'm going to attribute extra labor to that, because this is over and above just walking on the field shingle. If you have a permit, charge for it. If you use temporary toilets, it's a cost that's incurred. I don't know many roofing contractors that actually use temporary toilets. They should, maybe. There's a great reason to call for them. The workers definitely shouldn't be using the homeowner's toilet, that's for sure. And you don't want them peeing in the bushes. But I wouldn't ask for anything that we don't actually use in the field. I have a strict no holds barred policy on, we do not add what I'd call fluff to the estimate, generators or anything else that we're not actually using out on the job. But anything over and above what's considered average needs to be accounted for. And that covers, goes into, do they have a pool that we have to tarp? Do they have really expensive, 10 Japanese maples that if those get damaged, that could be anywhere from $3,000 to $7,000 a tree, that kind of a thing. Whereas the neighbor next door doesn't have Japanese maple. So we're charging for the cost that's incurred at the end of the day. That's what we're looking for. So yeah, definitely want to add the waste on the steep and height. The other thing I wanted to talk about was the removal and replacement issue that we're having right now. So with the flashing, with the pipe jack, what's missing also is the hip and ridge and the starter. I didn't even didn't clock that on this first blush here. So for the pipe jack, if you read here in Xactimate, this changed almost 2 years ago now, I believe. If you add for the removal of the pipe jack, and you click for detail, I hope you guys can see this, but it says this removal activity is intended to be used when the pipe jack flashing only is being removed for disposal. If the pipe jack flashing is being removed along with the shingles on the same roof slope, it is considered done with the shingle removal line item, and the removal item here would not be needed. Do I agree with that? No. But the only reason I have contractors use Xactimate is so we can talk the same language as them. Whether I agree with it or not, that's off the table. Right now, the rules are swinging in the opposite direction of what I would consider, I would agree with. You could have 10 pipe jacks or you could have none, or one, sorry. Like it's not gonna drastically change, your dump fees or whatever by weight, but still I have a bone to pick with it because it's different. 10 is different than 1, and that's why, but I'll play by the rules. So I'll use that replace only for the pipe jack. However, when you get into stuff like drip edge, that one does not have that language, meaning I should be using the remove and replace, not the replace only like I do on the pipe jack. So you'll see here that remove and replace, labor costs to remove drip edge and discard in the job site waste receptacle. They have no problem with that. So it's totally different language than what you'll see on the pipe jack, turtle vents, those types of things. Let's take a look at chimney flashing and see what they've got there for that verbiage. I'm going to go ahead and click for detail. Same thing, labor cost to remove. It doesn't say that this flashing is considered included in the removal of the field shingle the way that it did with pipe jacks, turtle vents, and there's another one that's escaping me at the moment. Brone vent maybe flashing. Yeah, so watch for that because yes, let's see here. We've got chimney flashing that's remove and replace is at $416 on this price list. If it's replace only, it knocks it down $30 each times 2 times the next 100 estimates you write. That could be, substantial money. Do I like to nitpick? And here's the deal. If I know that the adjuster is already kind of combative, not really wanting to have conversations, not really feeling like the supplement's going to go like, it's going to be an uphill battle, will I go after the $30? Maybe not. Does add up over each estimate, I understand, but to shorten the time that I have to talk to the adjuster and actually get him to agree with things, this might be an inflammatory thing that he'd be like, oh, you're one of those contractors, and you're, no. I'm just trying to ask for what's required and necessary. But if that's going to make you get all hot and bothered, I don't mind, just focusing on the majors like waste, increased ice and water shield, things that are required and necessary. Steep, I know the equipment and labor that we're going to need to do the work at this high area arts and crafts projects here. Those types of things are much bigger dollars. I just want you to know from an Xactimate standpoint why sometimes I will, pick on some of these like remove and replace things because it's going to add up over time, especially if the adjuster hasn't written an estimate yet and we're meeting them for an adjuster appointment. I just point out these things. This is what we asked for. This is why. We're the contractor of choice. We're a restoration professional. We know how to use Xactimate. So, a lot of these things but I don't want to like blow up a whole conversation over $60. That's not what I'm here to do. So it's a judgment call, and there's nuances to this business for sure. The other thing that we're going to need to do, there's a lot of work on the exterior here. I want to know what condition the siding's in. I don't even have pictures to understand what's going on with the siding. I pointed out those decks as well. I would like close-ups of those to make a better judgment. And then light fixtures, was there any damage to that? What's the HVAC situation? Are there any fins on this that we need to look at? So again, these pictures are actually presenting or bringing up more questions than they're actually answering for me on this home, but it's a good place to start. I think when I write the estimate next week, we're going to end up somewhere between 55 and 60, especially if we get O&P in there and all the other things. So this is actually what I do every Tuesday. I go and walk you through an estimate, real world estimate that we're looking at with real photos. It's not theoretical. Seeing what the original adjuster paid. We need to do a reprice on this one as well. It's being installed, or it was installed in May, let's say theoretically. Well, we need to look at a reprice and why. So that's what I'll talk about next week. We're going to write the supplement estimate together. I'll show you what I would include and what I can provide to the adjuster to prevent an objection before it even rises up with some of the things I'm going to be asking for. So I'll cover that next week. Would love to see you back here. Same bat time, same bat channel. It's at 4 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Eastern, and then always here. Oh, nope, isn't it? Yep, nope, 4:30. I'm doing it on the 30-minute mark this time around. But yeah, I would love to see you. Join me next week to see how we wrap this up. If you ever have any questions about what we do here at Estimate Mastery, feel free to DM us over here on Facebook or email us at info@estimatemastery.com. I'll put that as a comment and see if we can help you, get the increases that you should. Our members generally, on average, add an extra 25% to 40% to their businesses when they start working with us, because we help teach you how to write up estimates like what I'm going to show you next week. So would love to see you there. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out, and we'll just see you next week.